So my name is Ryan Burke from InVision. I don't know if you guys know about InVision. We are a design collaboration platform. So we're going to talk a little bit about, first, who am I, right? So I built the sales team in the US, scaled that up from 0 to about 100 in the US. Have since moved over to Europe, living in London. I've got a couple kids. We're big football fans. West Ham is our team. We don't win very often, but they are huge fans of the French national team. So congrats on the World Cup. My kiddos followed Olivier Giroud into the dressing room of a clothing store the other day to try to get his autograph. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about scaling your team from 1 to 50, scaling your sales team from 1 to 50. The first thing to understand is it's not easy, right? Getting from 0 to 50, from 1 to 50 is not easy, but it is important. Like when you get to 50, like that means something. It's similar to sort of the revenue threshold where you talk about that shift from, getting through from 50 to 100 million. You kind of made it. If you get to a 50-person sales team and they're, hitting their numbers and doing a job, like that means that your business has legs. That's what matters. So how are we going to talk about this? So basically, I'm going to break this apart into a couple chunks. So I'm going to talk about the beginning stages. I'm going to evolve that. I'm going to tell a couple stories. And I'm going to talk about what we've done at InVision. Right or wrong. Hopefully you'll learn something. So when I first started InVision, one of the things that I was looking for, there's about 30 people and there was no sales infrastructure, but one of the things that I was looking for, that folks are going to be looking for when they started a SaaS company early days, is what are those signals in the market that show that there's a product market fit, right? And at the time, InVision had a self-serve business getting about 1,000 signups every day. Those signals were there. So I joined, and there was really nothing from a sales perspective. We had one AE, one SDR. There was no reporting. There was no metrics. Salesforce was literally in a box. And InVision today, I don't know how many of you know InVision, but we're about 200 people on the customer-facing team. We work with about 80% of the Fortune 100. We're getting 5,000 signups every day. We've raised over $230 million and a 700-person fully remote workforce. If anybody wants to talk about managing a remote sales team, we could talk about that later. Cliff notes, it's not that easy. So where do you start? When you're thinking about building your first sales team, I'm going to chunk this up into what I call the 3 Fs, right? Your first 5, the foundation, and then how do you build that to the future? So you think about your first 5. Your first 5 salespeople or your sales team are really important. There's going to be mishires, don't get me wrong. You're gonna make mistakes, but think about these folks as a big priority because you're gonna be building your go-to-market strategy with these folks. We had about 200 people on our customer-facing team last year. The top 3 salespeople were 3 of the first 4 folks that I hired. That's not gonna help. That's not gonna happen to everybody, but that shows you how important and what a big impact your first 5 can have. Because what they are going to do is they're gonna be out in the market representing you and understanding the customer, the market, the community, and bringing that back. At this stage, forget selling, right? The salespeople, it's not about the sales. It's about them coming back to the business with those data points on what your customers are doing, what the community looks like. You don't need them focused on sales at this stage because you need them to help you build out your sales motion. A lot of you probably understand what your motion is. A lot of SaaS companies in here. So your sales motion is probably fairly product driven, but is it bottoms up? Is it tops down? Like what are the personas? You need to use those first 5 to understand that sales motion, and more importantly, what is the customer motion? How are they finding your product? How are they getting their hands on your product? Are they using it once? This is a pretty ugly representation of a customer journey at InVision, but basically you need to break apart every step, and you need those first 5 to break apart every step of that process because you have to find the friction points. And that's what your first 5 folks are going to be doing when they're out in the market, coming back to the business and informing you on where are those blockers at each stage. What are those friction points that you have to remove? Your business is going to be different than what we do at InVision, but you can figure out what those friction points are, right? If it's price, can you offer free trials or freemium? If it's they want to see the product in action, how do you get creative with group demos and things? If they want to know what it looks like with their business, can you pre-populate assets in those demos? If they don't trust your brand, how do you bring in other customers as references or testimonials? They don't want to sign up long term. They don't know who you are. Give them an opt-out. Early stage, you can be creative on legal and contracts to get folks using your product. That's what's most important. If you don't have all the features, bring them in. Have them talk to your product team. Show them the roadmap. Those things are important for your first 5 up front to be talking to the customers. The other part, storing this information, right? One of the mistakes that I made at InVision is there's so much data coming at you early. You've got to store that. It's so critically important for how you're going to build moving forward, for onboarding your new sales folks, for communicating with your product team. I don't care if you have a CRM, Google Doc, whatever it is, you need to be storing that. Especially why people don't buy your product. People that have used your product, why aren't they using it again? Celebrate that. We literally have a meeting every month where we have folks celebrate and are rewarded for losses, talking through those losses. That data is gold, and you should be using that data all the time with your product team. So for the first 5, who do you hire? Don't hire salespeople, right? You need folks that are going to be able to demonstrate your product without a lot of resources supporting them, right? You're going to need folks that are essentially product managers. That's really important early on. And you've got to find the people that have the right profile. We talked a little bit, somebody talked about sales folks, getting paid in the US, for instance. Like, good salespeople are not going to come to your startup for money, right? They're going to get paid more at Google, they're going to get paid more at Salesforce, but you've got to find those key traits that are important. Resilience is so important at this stage. Adaptability, the ability to go out, get your nose bloodied, getting no all the time and coming back to the business. That's what's important. That's what you need to hire for early on. And you have to understand what the motivations are. For these first 5, it shouldn't be about money. It's not about commission, as strange that it is, as that is for salespeople. It's about the opportunity. Do they see the opportunity? Are they bought into your vision and what you guys are trying to do? Do they want to take ownership? 3 of my first salespeople were somebody came from a technical support background, somebody had sales ops background, somebody was a former professional baseball player. They bought into the opportunity. They could see the vision. That's what you need to sell, because people early on, your first salespeople, aren't going to come on board for money, and they shouldn't. And you need to use that to build your first team. Nothing crazy here, but the first 5. The interesting point here is, get that BDR, because the BDR is going to be such a great vehicle for you to test out the data points and test out the messages in your market. Who's responding? Why are they responding? Is it the person you intended to have them respond? Using that data to feed back into your business is really critical, because what you need to do is find those anchor companies. I'm sure everybody knows the industries that you guys are in, that if these companies were working with your product, people would take notice. Who are the cool kids? Get those cool kids on board. Remove the friction to get those cool kids on board, because you'll leverage their network effect. At InVision, in the design space, Spotify, Airbnb, Netflix, PayPal, it was really important for us to get them on board early. We did everything we could to remove friction to get them on board early, because we then leveraged that network effect and we had credibility. So I know I'm flying through this a little bit, but just on the first 5, a couple points of summary. It's all about the customer journey. It's not about hiring salespeople. Finding those friction points in your process, and then understanding the right traits and the right motivations to get people in early. And if we think now about the foundation, right? So you've got some level of a customer journey, you've got a sales motion, so now you're starting to build for stage 2, which is the foundation. Hire operations a lot earlier than you think. This is a mistake that I made early on where, I had a 5-person team and I was like, I'm not going to hire sales ops yet. And then I had 15 people and it was too late. You need to hire operations earlier than you think. The data is the lifeblood of how you're going to build your business. Overinvest and prioritize operations earlier than you think. Don't specialize too early. Right? You'll have time as you scale, like you see specialization across the funnel, it's going to happen, but don't do it too early. Too often people make the mistakes and say, hey, BDRs are going to do all the prospecting. AEs aren't going to prospect anymore. AEs, in my opinion, should be prospecting 20% of the time, no matter what role they're in, right? They need to be out there talking to the marketplace and having those customer touch points. You don't want your customers early on talking to an SDR, then a BDR, then an AE, then a CSM, like, what the hell? You need to make sure that you're just focusing on having the right people talking to the market and resisting that temptation to specialize too early, because it will happen. Then you're going to build your first management layer. You've got the foundation. You're going to build a management layer. The important thing, don't hire managers. You want coaches. Find people that are good coaches. You need to have people that are going to focus on making people better. Like, find people that maybe in their past lives they taught or on the side they teach at accelerators or whatnot. They're really interested in helping people get better at specific things. And still, it's early where you shouldn't even be focusing on the results, right? A little crazy in sales that you don't really need the sales. You do, but at this stage, the behaviors and the activities are so much more important. You should be breaking apart like a salesperson's quota or breaking apart a deal and identifying what those leading indicators are leading up to that. Chunk up those specific steps. How many leads, how many meetings, how often do you have to get in front of folks? How many touch points were there? How many opportunities do you need to create? Break those apart. That's what you need your coaches to focus on. That's what you should be measuring people on, not about the results. People are going to miss numbers early on. That's okay. If they're doing the right things, if they're doing the right activities and behaviors, that's going to help you build that foundational team. As always, throughout this entire process, just think about the relentless focus on the customer. Everything is about, if you want to talk about those metrics, you've got to measure folks specifically on how often they're talking to customers. There is nothing more important, especially early on, getting in front of them, shaking hands, talking to them. Hire them. Early on, our target persona, still is, was the designer. Designer's a finicky persona, right? They don't want to be sold to. They don't want to talk to salespeople. So I was going to go out and hire a sales engineer. And instead, I hired a designer who sat on our sales team. He would sit in on calls. He would talk to the designers we were talking to, added some credibility, told us about the nuances, the day-to-day of a designer's life, right? Whoever your target persona is, hire them. Put them on your sales team. That's going to help understand how you go out and cater to those customers. And you need to be talking to those customers about more than your product. At this stage, you need to be adding value at every step beyond your software. We made a movie. A little crazy. My CEO first told me we're making a movie, but we made a feature-length documentary on the power of design to disrupt industries. And we made this movie, and it was such an incredible touch point for our sales folks to be able to go out and have a conversation, engage with senior folks about some value that we were delivering without selling our product. We did screenings. Hey, you want to see our movie? Let's do a screening at your headquarters. Hey, let's get a group at a local accelerator. Do a screening, offering something back to that community. We've done over 800 screenings across the world now. Headquarters of Google, Uber, Salesforce, IBM, all over the place. And it's all about being able to offer that value. And maybe you can't make a movie. There's still so many other things that you can be doing at this stage to build that foundation. Whether it's workshops, drink ups, dinners, just get in front of your customers. Just go out there and add value to them beyond just what your software delivers. It's about building your brand. You want to drive leads early in the process? Brand is how you get inbound. It's all about the brand. And you need salespeople at this stage that can represent that brand. Think about when you're hiring folks. Are they the people that you would want talking to Google if that came in as an inbound lead? Are they people that if you're running an event that you would want out there representing your brand? Are they people that, when support questions come up, are they going to do the right thing for your customers? It's all about them representing the brand and getting in front of those customers. talking to them on a personal level. Another program that we do at InVision is called Delicious Empathy. Anybody at InVision is allowed to take out somebody to dinner, product designer, developer, executive, and expense it. Just get to know that person, talk to them about their day-to-day. The one rule is you're not allowed to talk about InVision. So hire the folks that you want out there talking to those customers and representing your brand. So now you've got the foundation, the focus on the customer, hiring coaches, offering value. So now you talk about the future. Stage 3. So things are going to change. First off, congrats. If you've made it to 25 to 50 sales folks, like, you've got something, right? And that's something to celebrate and be proud of. But now things will break. All the bubble gum and sticky tape that you use to patchwork together all those processes early, as you scale, those will start to break. I don't know what happened here. Exhibit A. But the point is, as you start to evolve your motion, things are going to break, and you're going to have to remove the friction again, because there will be new friction points at this stage. And that's where you're going to have to continue to evolve, identify, bring back to the team, and your sales folks are going to have to go back to your team and figure that out. At InVision, people put product prototypes in our product. Super sensitive IP. And as we started to cater to bigger customers, security was like a big barrier for us. So we invested in it. We've got a private cloud offering, SSO, we've got SOC 2 certification. Like, all of those things, you've got to figure out how that friction is going to evolve as you start to move into bigger conversations, and figure out how you can remove that friction. But before it was all about the product, now you're actually selling. So this team that you're building now, they're actually going to sell. The difference is nobody cares about your product or your features anymore. All they care about is the output. What are the results of somebody using your product? What are the stories that people are getting from using your product? And that's going to change the way you hire. Because before, when you wanted product managers, now you need storytellers. We just did an offsite last week. We probably spent, I don't even know, $250,000 in training the sales team on storytelling. Like, being able to articulate how other companies are getting value out of your product. Being able to tell the stories of the business impact. Nobody cares what your product's called. Nobody cares what your features do at this stage as you're talking to executives. They care about the business results. And that's who you need to hire. And you need to hire those folks. There's a little bit of a temptation as you scale to hire senior folks that are coming in with their own playbook and their own, set of skills. You need people that fit your culture and your values. You need to define those and then hire the right people. Like, one of the values that we have on our team is embracing change. I love hiring folks that come in with 10 years of experience, but if they can't adapt to our process, I don't want their process. We've built our process based on our customer, our market, our motion. I don't want their process. I need folks that can come in and adapt to ours. That's what's important at this stage. So I flew through this, but what does it all mean? Again, focusing on these 3 F's, like your first 5, your foundation, and then the future. Removing friction at every step of the process as you identify that customer journey, so you can get those anchor companies on board and leverage the network effect of working with the cool kids. Data and operations, earlier than you think. It's going to be important. You're going to need those data points to scale the business. Having a sales team that is focused on offering value every step of the way beyond whatever your software is. That's going to be important. Focusing on the right behaviors. Sales results are great, but they don't matter as much earlier on. Building the muscle on the right behaviors and activities, that's going to lay the foundation for a scalable business. And getting the people on board that fit your profile and are there for the right reasons, those are the folks that you want to hire as part of your early sales team. And especially as you start to make that shift, because the shift will happen. You'll shift from a product sales motion to a value-based sales motion. That's going to change the way you scale. It's going to change the way you hire, and you've got to be focused on that. And all the while, everything's about your brand. How do you represent your brand to your customers? Who are the sales folks that are representing your brand? What is the value you're offering, and what does your brand represent? Thank you.